One judgment down, another we are still expecting, even as Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, say at least excited on one hand, but he's still waiting for the result of the second petition against him. On the federal scene, the two main opposition parties in the 2023 general elections are not backing down because they are challenging the verdict of the appeal court. This time they've gone to the highest court of the land, Nigeria's Supreme Court. Right here in Lagos and across the country, fans of the late artist Mohbad still calling on the government and the Nigeria police to ensure that there is justice as it concerns his unfortunate death. More unfortunate news. The young boy, 12-year-old, with a missing intestine. He is dead. How did we even get to the part where he would have a medical operation on him by someone who allegedly is not qualified to actually do that? Has it gotten that bad? And how about the controversies that is still trailing the academic records of Nigeria's president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Was the latest as it concerns that fight out there at the court in the United States? Is it going to impact the judgment of Nigeria's Supreme Court in the next coming months? Well, all of that will get us talking today on the newsroom this evening. A very good evening to you. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno, and of course the newsroom is a program where we take a critical look at some of the big stories that have made the rounds in the course of the last 7 days right here on this dial. You can watch the show because we are streaming live on Facebook, Nigeria Info 993, and we're also streaming on our YouTube portal, Nigeria Info FM. Now, guys, today's show is going to be all about you and me. I've got no guest. Nope. You are going to be my guest. We will talk about some of the big stories that made the rounds last week, and of course, get to hear what you have to say in the number of minutes that we have on the show, give or take the next 35 minutes or thereabouts. In case you haven't heard, the Lagos State Election Tribunal earlier today dismissed the petition of the PDP and its governorship candidate. And of course, as at right now, our correspondent Emmanuel Onwoka is still out there at the Ikeja High Court, where the tribunal is still reading its delivery of the petition by the Labour Party and its governorship candidate. We're still awaiting that. Hopefully, next week, Monday, that would most likely be one of the conversations we will have, because, of course, there will be reactions to it already. The PDP has said, the PDP in Lagos State has said they will study the judgment and, of course, make known their thoughts about it. You heard a lot of that on our news. But one of the big stories that made the rounds in the course of the last 7 days has got to be issues concerning the academic record of Nigeria's president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Well, the flag bearer of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, did go to a court out there in the US and is seeking for approval to get the academic records of the president from the Chicago State University. Of course, you do know that the Chicago State University themselves have come out to confirm that indeed President Bola Tinubu attended their institution and, of course, did particularly well. But, of course, the opposition presidential candidate, talking about Atiku Abubakar, is alleging that there's some discrepancies between in the certificate presented by the president that is lodged with the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and of course, what indeed he actually got. And so he's seeking for that record. Well, a court, the United States District Court out there in the Northern District of Illinois, did give approval that the academic records of the president be released to Atiku. This was last week. However, a couple of days later, the president and his lawyers, argued that their client was not willing to lift his privacy privilege, and that releasing those documents will probably cause some harm to him. Well, he filed that appeal, and as at the case was supposed to be heard today, Monday. The last I've gotten from that proceeding is that the lawyers to the president have asked that, okay, you can release the document, but there are certain areas that you should not release. I've not gotten all of the details from the proceedings for today, so I'm really not going to go into all of that until we get more information. But it keeps me wondering, and quite a number of persons have been wondering, why exactly is Atiku trying to get a hold of this academic record? The school has said, hey, the man attended our school, he graduated, so is that not enough? But of course, the other angle will be, like the lawyers to the opposition presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar is alleging, that there are discrepancies, some information in the certificate presented to INEC. They are alleging that there are certain information there that are not in sync with the records held by the school. So they're asking, if this certificate is actually put out, then maybe you can just clear it once and for all. Now, one of the issues concerns date. Reportedly, the president graduated, I think, in 1979, but the opposition party are alleging that the certificate presented to INEC was signed by someone who was not president of the school at the time. There's also another tiny issue about the gender of the person on that certificate. Now, as we all know, Nigeria's president is a man. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is, of course, of the male gender. But one of the alleged discrepancies in the certificate presented to INEC is suggesting, or rather, the certificate that was given by the school, they're alleging that it was presented to a female. How do these things work out? Well, of course, lawyers to the president have argued that all of those issues are as a result of clerical error. Somebody must have made a mistake in the course of typing. So the question will be, genuinely, was it clerical error? Was it a mistake? Or could it be that there's an alleged case of possible forgery, which could be a bit problematic? Another question will be, really, can Nigeria's apex court, the Supreme Court, actually take this evidence into consideration when it wants to deal with the petition or the appeal that has been filed by the PDP? Questions, and questions. And of course, the other angle will be quite a number of cynics, have asked this. If indeed there's really no issue with your certificate or, the papers you say are yours, would it be too much to ask that, since you're a public figure, that these things be given out? Would it be invading your privacy? A lot of questions I have to say, but we'll just have to wait until the court in the US gives its final verdict. I think we should have We shall have that possibly later today or possibly in the early hours of tomorrow. We should know for certain where exactly that case is going. And my question to you, Lagos, would be, what do you make of all of this back and forth? Yeah, because it does feel like back and forth. Yes. Also, talking about tribunal cases, one of the big news from last week was the fact that Tribunal sacked the governor of Kano State and held that the opposition party, the APC, and its candidate were the rightful winners of the election on March 25th, 2023. Now, according to the judgment of the tribunal, which, by the way, the tribunal had to give their verdict via electronic means. Yes, they did it via Zoom. And you can understand the security in Kano can be a bit touchy. Kano can be a bit of a hotbed sometimes. So I can understand, the judges in that case trying as much as possible to guarantee their own safety. But something very critical from their verdict was that over 150,000 votes that were calculated for the winning NNPP were not stamped or signed by an electoral officer. And as a result, the judges of the tribunal decided that, you know what, these things are not official votes. So by the time they took those votes out of the total votes for the NNPP, well, it meant automatically that the APC's candidate became the man who's got the highest votes. Well, of course, the NNPP candidate has instructed his lawyers to challenge the decision, and of course, there would definitely be a stay of execution. To a large extent, my colleague Marianne Okon did have a conversation with officials from the NNPP, and they exhausted, in the last hour before the news, they exhausted a lot of those conversations. I wouldn't necessarily want to go so much into it. These two conversations are some of the big stories, that made the rounds in the course of the last 7 days. Lagos, I want to talk to you about it. There are two more conversations we will talk about, but before we get into that, let me hear from you. What do you make of the appeal from the opposition parties, especially the PDP, who are looking to get the academic records of the president to prove their allegations that there's some form of discrepancy, which could mean alleged forgery, which of course is enough grounds to actually disqualify a candidate? What do you make of it? What do you make of course, the conversations from the president noting that if these records are released, it could be harmful to him? Some have asked, like I did ask earlier, if indeed there's no issue with these credentials, what's the big deal actually releasing them? Okay, Lagos, I would like to talk to you. 0700 993 993 993. 0700 993 993 993. Ladies, you can talk to us on 01 465 7190. Guys, keep your comments short, simple, straight to the point. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, good evening to you. Welcome to the newsroom.
God bless you. This is the first time of me calling you in my life. It's Koboko.
Okay.
Koboko. If you give out topics, allow us to call Sasha because no time for this program. One, if I'm the president of Nigeria and I'm a public figure, they're supposed to even carry my certificate from primary school to What is the meaning of they will not release some parts? There's some part that they will not release is the main one where Atuku is looking for. Let them release that for Nigerians. Are you hearing me?
So you are in support of the PDP candidate asking for those credentials to be released?
Yes, now because his opposition, the opposition can use any evidence now to attack you.
Okay.
Concerning Mohbad, hello?
We haven't gotten to that. Thank you very much for calling. A very good evening to you. Welcome to the newsroom. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, my name is Tony. What is difficult for the U.S. university to release the results?
Well,
everybody will see.
Well,
and at the same time,
hold on a second. You asked the question. The result is actually the private property of a particular individual. The university is not just going to wake up and just release the documents just like that. They needed a court to actually approve it before they can do it, because that would be divulging private information to the public. So have I answered your question?
Okay, listen. If I forge the result now in any institution, how will you find out that I forged it?
If you forge it?
Yes.
Well,
how will you know that that is speaking to you now I forged it?
I would have to see the result to know.
Okay, with this one now, how would you know that Tinubu did not forge the result?
Well, to a large extent, we would have to wait for the court last week, if you remember, which is the news we're actually trying to discuss, did give that approval. However, an appeal was lodged by the lawyers to the president. And if an appeal is lodged, well, you have to listen to that case. You're not just going to take laws into your hands. Everything has to go through a process, and that's where the rule of law comes into play.
Thank you very much. I will come back with you now, lad. If we don't find out detail, another person will still do the same thing. What we are trying to do now.
Wait, hold on. When you say hold on, when you say what we are trying, are you part of the PDP?
I'm not part of PDP. I'm in Nigeria.
Okay, I needed to clear that.
Okay, let me tell you something. If Nigeria is a good place, do you think Sandra will leave this studio and go away? Other people that don't have the privilege to leave Nigeria, how will they survive? Well, you can see the difficulty in Nigeria. Nigeria will not move forward.
Just to correct that notion, you don't have a place doesn't have to be bad for people to actually leave. People also leave other countries and come to live in the same Nigeria, so it doesn't necessarily relate.
I agree with you now. If you have foreigner in Nigeria here, they are expatriates. They come here, they live in hotels. Before you know, they leave. They are not coming here to live in Nigeria.
Well,
all Nigeria that are Japa,
thank you very much for your thoughts. I appreciate that. But to correct that notion, not all the persons who come into Nigeria live in hotels. People, foreigners coming to Nigeria, live here, have lived there for a very long time. A very good example, of course, is my employer. And he's lived almost all of his life right here in Nigeria. Over 30 years, still growing strong. And of course, already a Nigerian citizen. So it's not totally true that everybody who comes in lives in hotels. I'll take another call. Remember, there's the NNPP situation too. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening to you. Welcome to the newsroom.
This is Ebe calling from Ikorodu.
Okay.
My own question is, if we did not get the right result, would that one stop him not to be a president again?
If we don't get the right result?
Yes.
Well, that will be up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has the final say as it is right now.
Okay.
Whether we get the certificate or not, it's still the Supreme Court's decision. Hello, final call before I go into the other topics for today.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to the newsroom.
Yeah, this is Rita calling from Lafayette.
Welcome, Rita. Oh dear, Rita. Sorry about that. Do try and call us back. I will take that final call at this hour. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the newsroom.
Hello, Good evening.
Hi.
Please, if you give us a topic, can you just allow us to express our mind?
I just did that. Could you go ahead?
Yeah. I think the president, to clear the air, I think he's supposed to bring whatever that required from article without being delayed. I think if you went to school, you have your classmates, you be bold to bring your certificate. What is still holding it, if I may ask? That's my question. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your question, even though I do not have an answer for that. Someone sent a message on WhatsApp without a name, and it says, "Good evening. Since President Bola Tinubu sought the office of a public servant, let him declare his results public." To be honest, I'm not sure there's a part of the Constitution that says you have to do that, but I get your point. Ufuoma, let America clear its integrity and release the result. Anonymous. Well, Anonymous. I don't know if that's if the integrity of America as a whole is in question here, but of course the issue has to do with a particular school in the US, and the case is still in court. We would have to wait for the final decision of the appeal lodged by the president's lawyers. Okay, another very big conversation over the last 7 days has got to be the death of late artist Mohbad. There's been quite a number of conversations as it concerns this, but of course the big news was that last week the Nigeria police exhumed his body from where it was buried and of course conducted an autopsy. We're still waiting for the result of that autopsy, by the way. I remember it was one of the big stories from Thursday, Friday, where the police, did confirm that the autopsy has been done. All we're just waiting for now is confirmation of the result from that autopsy. In the same vein, the Nigeria Police Force spokesperson, Muyiwa Adejobi, did ask last week that the public should be open-minded and remain peaceful as investigations are ongoing. Now, it struck quite a chord when he said Nigerians should be open-minded, because to a large extent, you might want to think, if you follow the conversations offline, online, almost everywhere, it feels like a large number of persons already have their mind set that this is what happened to Mohbad. This is why he died. This is why, what led to his death. And so for that reason, A and B and C has a case to answer. That's what it feels like if you go by the conversations, like I said, offline, online. Now, this is me not trying to argue that conversation is right or wrong. No, that's not what I'm saying. I don't know for certain, because of course we have to wait for the police to actually give us the result of the investigation. We have to wait for to get that result, and be certain. But like the police spokesperson Muyiwa Adejobi rightly noted, he says people should be open-minded. That means you should give the security agencies the benefit of the doubt, to finally tell us what exactly, after going through all their investigations, what exactly happened. Now, I can understand that the Nigeria police really doesn't have the very best of records. Yeah, I know that the Nigeria police doesn't have the best of records and doesn't have the faith and confidence from a majority of Nigerians. That is okay, because come to think of it, we've seen, cases where it feels like the police turns a blind eye, to certain areas, and they are quite forceful in certain areas. We've seen that, and I wouldn't necessarily also deny the fact that it's not just a Nigerian thing. I think it's a global challenge. Yes. But let me leave all of that conversation. For me, I'm most concerned about the police saying people should have an open mind. Yes, we have seen a lot of conversations about, Mohbad's record label owner. We've seen a lot of conversations about some certain individuals, and the allegations that have been leveled against them. But I would want to think that, we should just hold on and wait for the police to actually conclude their investigations, and then we can take it up from there. Good news was that right here in Lagos, Muriokola Park to be precise, there was a candlelit procession, for the late artist, and of course, fans had the opportunity to pay their respect to the dead. Sadly, some persons used the opportunity, to do a lot of things that he wanted to do. I've seen reports about, people doing some extra activities at the venue, and you would ask, it's supposed to be a candlelit procession. It's supposed to be, a solemn event, but anyway, I wouldn't necessarily want to go into all of those details. And then, one way or the other, some persons decided that, what, we will continue that conversation or that procession somewhere else, which in the real sense of the word was not the agreement the organizers had with the police. Now, I think that we also need to be able to look ourselves in the eyes and tell ourselves some gospel truth. I've seen a few conversations, asking why people would decide, to go away from what has been agreed, which was the candlelit procession at Muriokola Park, and decide to invade, a spot that is quite touchy, especially if you remember the events from 3 years ago. Why would people decide to go there to go continue whatever it is they were doing? But then again, the other side of the story would be that constitutionally, you do not actually need the permission of the police to go on a protest or to go on a march. You don't. You can only notify the police that, I'm going to do so and so. Of course, to get possible protection from the police. But, we come from a history of doing things the military way, such that constitutional right that Nigerians actually have to go on protests, one way or the other, the police all excuse to not let happen. Now, the excuse might be a valid one because we've seen history of these protests turn ugly, and of course, people with evil intentions use the opportunity to foment trouble. Yeah, that is quite understandable. To a large extent, Lagos has really not totally recovered from, the incidents of 3 years ago. Quite a lot of destructions. So I can understand government or possibly the security forces being a bit wary of people wanting, to exercise their constitutional right. But then again, we also have to make it clear. The police do not have any right to stop anybody from protesting. Absolutely not. It is a constitutional right. But then again, two sides to the divide. We honestly don't know where to go. But like I did say, hopefully we will get to the bottom of this issue, and hopefully the family of the late artist will get closure. Because trust me, it is not easy losing a family member. It isn't. Especially a young one at that. Okay, moving on. Final conversation before I go back to your thoughts on the phone lines and other portals. This story has been ongoing for a while, but it came to a head last week when the 12-year-old Adebola Akinbright, whose intestine was allegedly removed after his surgery, died. Now, the Lagos state government has tried as much as possible, after the story broke, to find some form of succor for the young man and his family. But a report by the Lagos State House of Assembly last week was quite shocking. And for me, that's the evil part, or the sad part, I should say, of this whole conversation. Now, according to the Lagos State House of Assembly, surgery was done on the young boy twice. But the doctor who performed the surgery twice on the boy was not a qualified surgeon. Dr. Bayewu of Obitoks Hospital in Alimosho reportedly confessed, according to the report from the Lagos State House of Assembly, that he did not carry out any medical examination on the boy before the first surgery, which he did himself, adding that he only relied on the report from a hospital the patient was first taken to, and that he also agreed that he is not a surgeon, but relied on his experience as a medical doctor. Working on this story last week, Thursday and Friday, it brought chills. That's how the 12-year-old boy lost his life, because someone who's not qualified to be a surgeon, someone who's not qualified to conduct surgery, went ahead and did that. And in the process, the young man lost his small intestines. From my integrated science from primary school, I know that small intestine has a lot of function in the body, and I'm wondering how he even managed to survive for the days and weeks after. Quite a number of Nigerians have had to go through this same scenario. Quite a number of Nigerians. And it's quite sad that it still happens. Probably happened yesterday, probably will happen again today. Speaker of the House, Mudashiru Obasa, has directed the clerk to write to the State Police Command to effect the arrest of the doctor in question, Abayomi Bayewu. And I'm hoping that justice will be done in his case. People, what do you make of this story? And of course, the issue we talked about as it concerns the death of the late artist Mohbad, which continues to be a talking point, and I'm sure we'll most likely get more updates this week. 0700 993 993 993. You can also send us messages on WhatsApp or tweet at us at Nigeria Info FM. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Hi, good evening to you.
Good evening. This is Amos calling from Ikoyi.
Welcome.
My reaction is on two stories. I think if the president, because I know my mother used to tell me, if you know you are right, don't run away from me. Especially when my mother called me, she wanted to bath me. Don't run away. So why the president is hiding his qualification and his credential?
Well, it is privacy to a large extent, and of course,
in a public domain, we are Nigerians. At least in this your studio you are working, at least your CEO requested for your qualification before employing you. Is that a crime for the whole Nigeria to say maybe we need his qualification?
Well, it might not necessarily be same like you said, but thank you very much for your thought. I'd like to get others to also weigh in on this. Hello, good evening. Quickly, you've got 30 seconds. Welcome.
This is my first time of calling you. Well, that Debola's case, to me, I think it was a bit of negligence. That's one. Then unqualified someone touching something that is so vital like that. My ex actually did an appendicitis, and it took him just 3 days. Just 3 days to come back home, and it was okay. So, in fact, to me, I think the person that did the time the small intestine was removed was thinking that he is going to go and he will go and die at home, so that they will just say maybe he died at home. He never knew that boy would live that long. But it's so sad It's so sad in such a way that I thought Governor Solu are taking it up. I thought they were going to fly him abroad immediately. What were they waiting for again?
Sadly, that didn't happen and the young man lost his life. Ugo from Surulere says, hello, please. Why must someone always direct the police to do their job? Why is the speaker the one telling the police to arrest the doctor? When a crime is committed, the police should not be waiting for a directive from anyone to do their job. Okay. Hi, Ufuoma. On the issue of Mohbad, my heart goes out to the family and I pray our police will do the right thing by exposing and giving the truth about his death. That being said, our people need to be very careful about going to Lekki Tollgate knowing that they could get killed. Why are they posting video of them being tear gassed? I blame them as I value the small life I have and I can't waste it on the Nigerian police. Is this Sean? Sean with that thought right there. Well, salient questions you actually asked there. Why would you want to endanger yourself? Lagos, that's the much we can take on this edition of the show. It's been, I wouldn't want to say wonderful. It's been quite emotional talking about some of these issues, especially the last two conversations I had on Mohbad and the young 12-year-old who lost his intestine and had to die. Hopefully, we can find closure for these two families. My producer today, Precious Nena Okon, has done a wonderful job. And of course, on behalf of saying regards to her and of course the rest of the newsroom who have packaged these stories. We'll be back again next week, Monday, 6:15 for another edition of the newsroom. Until then, have yourselves a wonderful evening. Femi and the gang will be in the building after this commercial break. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno. Stay safe.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info.